So imagine spending 30 years of your life mastering this really highly complex profession.
Right, like putting in the grueling late nights.
Exactly. You do the late nights, you memorize all the precedents, you build up this pristine reputation in your city. And then, just on one ordinary Tuesday, a client walks into your office and places a stack of papers on your desk,
Just out of nowhere.
just right there. And you glance at them, and they are these flawless, comprehensive legal documents, but, they were generated by a machine in like 10 seconds.
Wow. Yeah, that's heavy.
Right. And in October of 2022, a lawyer in Takamatsu, Japan, experienced exactly that. And his reaction to those papers and really the profound existential friction of that exact moment is what we are unpacking today.
It is a moment that honestly perfectly encapsulates the whiplash of the early 2020s.
Yeah.
Because today, for our deep dive, we are looking at a set of observation records from the year 2026. They were written by Tama Yoshida, also known by his Japanese name, Yoshida Tsutomu. He's a digital strategist, the representative of Kagawa Labo, and a promoter for Japan's digital agency.
Which gives him such a unique vantage point on all this.
Exactly. And in his records, which, by the way, he prepared for both Japanese and international audiences.
Oh, that's an interesting detail.
Yeah, he really wanted a broad scope. He looks back at the explosive arrival of generative AI and traces how it basically forced us to completely redraw the boundaries of human value.
Now, I want to set expectations directly for you listening to this right now. We are not doing a product review today.
No, definitely not.
We're not evaluating the technical specs of artificial intelligence or debating which language model is superior. Yoshida's records aren't about the software at all.
No, they're about us.
Right. The mission of this deep dive is to explore unfinished thoughts. We are exploring the messy, unresolved friction between human identity, professional pride, and technology.
Because Yoshida intentionally leaves some of these questions open-ended.
Yeah, he doesn't try to wrap it up with a bow because we are still living inside this transition.
And that transition is the story. The best place to see that transition in action is to go back to that lawyer's office in Takamatsu.
Let's do it. Set the scene.
So the context here is super crucial. It's late 2022. The generative AI boom is just, breaking into mainstream consciousness.
Right. Everyone's just starting to hear about it.
Exactly. And Yoshida, acting as a tech-forward digital strategist, needs a legal consultation.
Yeah.
So he does what feels completely natural to him.
Which is?
He uses ChatGPT to organize his thoughts, structure his arguments, and generate a comprehensive set of consultation documents before he even walks through the lawyer's door.
See, he probably thought he was doing the lawyer a favor.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
He is streamlining the meeting. He hands the documents across the desk. But the lawyer does not look at this as an efficiency gain at all.
Not even a little bit.
The lawyer's reaction is entirely visceral. He looks at Yoshida and declares, "I take pride in my profession. I will never accept ChatGPT."
And you have to notice what is missing from that reaction.
What do you mean?
Well, the lawyer doesn't point to a specific paragraph and say, this legal interpretation is incorrect or this clause is out of date.
Right, he doesn't critique the actual work.
Exactly. His rejection has absolutely nothing to do with the utility or the accuracy of the documents. It is a pure defensive reflex.
It makes me think about the transition in modern medicine. Imagine a veteran medical diagnostician.
Okay.
For decades, her entire value was her ability to look at a fuzzy X-ray, cross-reference it with 100 subtle patient symptoms in her head, and spot the anomaly nobody else could see.
Right, her cognitive moat.
Yes, her cognitive moat. Then, an advanced AI imaging system is installed in her hospital. It scans the patient and highlights the anomaly with 99% accuracy in 3 seconds.
Wow.
When she pushes back against that machine, she isn't really arguing about image resolution,
Right. She's experiencing the sudden, terrifying evaporation of that cognitive moat she spent her entire life building. That mechanism of identity loss is exactly what Yoshida identified in 2026 when he reflected on the Takamatsu encounter.
It really hits hard.
Because the lawyer wasn't protecting his legal knowledge from being corrected by a machine. He was protecting his identity from being erased by one.
He felt his years of study, his late nights, his specialized status in society were all just being trivialized by a prompt box.
Yeah, and that specific fear became the defining anxiety of the era. It birthed the massive global narrative that AI was simply here to steal jobs.
Oh, absolutely. You couldn't open a browser in the early 2020s without seeing that exact headline. The terror that AI agents were coming for white-collar work, creative fields, and specialized
That's
professions.
everywhere.
But Yoshida argues in his records that this narrative is fundamentally flawed. Looking through the lens of 2026, he states we were looking at the mechanics of the transition completely backward.
How-
Well, he says we were not and are not experiencing job theft. What we actually experiencing is value transfer.
Value transfer. That distinction between theft and transfer is really the core of Yoshida's whole framework.
Right.
To understand how value transfer actually works, he pulls us back to look at historical technological shifts, because the pattern is incredibly consistent. Technology almost never eliminates a profession overnight.
Yeah, he brings up the classic example of the ATM.
I love this example.
Me too. When automated teller machines were rolled out, there was absolute panic in the banking sector. The assumption was that human bank tellers would be extinct within a decade.
Right, because why pay a human to hand out cash when a box in the wall does it for free 24 hours a day?
Exactly. But the role of the bank teller didn't vanish. In fact, branches became cheaper to operate, so banks opened more of them, and teller employment actually went up for a period.
But the nature of the work changed entirely.
Yes, it did.
The specific task of counting bills and dispensing cash, which, used to be a highly valued, high-security human skill, that transferred to the machine.
Right, the value transferred.
Because the machine absorbed that task, the human's value had to migrate up the chain. Tellers shifted from being cash dispensers to becoming relationship managers.
Right, they started solving complex customer service issues, selling mortgages, managing accounts.
Exactly. The profession survived, but the tasks that generated value changed.
Okay, I have to push back on this framework for a second because I know what you, the listener, are likely thinking right now.
Fair enough. Hit me.
It is very easy to look at a bank teller handing out 20s and say that's a mechanical task. But let's look at a junior lawyer or a junior copywriter or an entry-level software engineer.
Okay.
Their literal job description, the thing they bill 80 hours a week for, is document review, drafting boilerplate text, or writing basic code modules.
Right, the grunt work.
If an AI comes in and does the document review and writes the code, the actual entry point into that profession is gone. The daily tasks are the job. If the tasks disappear, how is that not a stolen job for the person sitting at that desk?
That is the most vital friction point in this entire discussion, to be honest. And your pushback highlights the exact pain of the transition.
Right.
Yoshida actually acknowledges this. If your entire professional identity is anchored solely to the execution of a specific, repeatable cognitive task, then yeah, the transition absolutely feels like theft.
It really does.
But the underlying mechanism is still value transfer. The monetary value of gathering information, translating basic text, drafting a standard contract, or writing boilerplate code has effectively plummeted to near zero.
Wow. Yeah.
AI has completely absorbed the value of those actions.
So the value of being a human calculator or a human dictionary is just gone.
Completely gone. AI owns the domain of information gathering, summarization, documentation, translation, and coding assistance. Yoshida lists those out explicitly.
He draws a very clear line.
He does. And the friction you're pointing out happens because humans have historically conflated doing the task with being the professional.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
The lawyer in Takamatsu thought his value was drafting the document. It wasn't. The drafting was just a vehicle.
The actual value he was providing to his clients lived in a completely different domain, and it took the arrival of AI to force us to separate the two.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the most critical question of Yoshida's records. If we strip away the summarization, the code generation, and the document drafting, what is actually left in the human column?
Right. What do we still own?
Yoshida draws a hard line here, too. He explicitly lists the domains that remain uniquely and stubbornly human. Trust, judgment, responsibility, empathy, creativity, and purpose. The fundamental why we do it.
It is very easy to read that list and just, dismiss them as corporate buzzwords.
Yeah, empathy and purpose sound great on a motivational poster in a break room.
Right. But Yoshida is treating them as rigorous economic realities. These are the traits that are fundamentally automation-proof.
I want you, the listener, to run an audit on your own workday for a moment. Like, really think about it. If you were to magically strip away every email you send, every spreadsheet you format, every meeting summary you write, and every piece of baseline data you gather.
That's a lot of the day.
It is.
Yeah.
What is the actual core value you are providing to your team or your clients? What are they really paying you for?
When you run that audit, Yoshida's list suddenly becomes very concrete.
Yeah.
Let's look at the mechanism of responsibility. Why is a human lawyer still economically valuable if an AI can write a perfect contract?
Why?
Because an AI cannot be held liable.
Oh, that is a massive distinction, liability.
Think about the legal and financial structures of our society. Like if an AI drafts a merger agreement for $1 billion acquisition,
Right.
and there is a subtle loophole that causes the deal to collapse, who takes the fall?
Yeah. Who do you blame?
You cannot sue an algorithm. An
No.
AI cannot take the stand in a courtroom. It cannot hold malpractice insurance. It cannot go to jail.
It bears absolutely no burden of consequence.
Exactly. The human lawyer's ultimate monetary value is their ability to put their name, their professional reputation, and their legal liability on the line. They're paid to shoulder the risk.
The value isn't the typing. The value is the accountability. That makes total sense. And you see the exact same dynamic when you look at Yoshida's inclusion of trust and empathy.
Trust is such a fascinating mechanism here because we often confuse it with reliability.
Right.
An AI is highly reliable. It will give you the correct historical data every single time. But trust requires something deeper. It requires shared vulnerability.
Let's ground that in a real scenario. Imagine a financial advisor.
Yeah.
An AI can ingest a client's portfolio, analyze global market trends, and spit out the mathematically optimal investment strategy in milliseconds. The task of financial analysis is solved.
Solved. Done.
But what happens when the market crashes? The client is, say, a 65-year-old retiree terrified of outliving their savings. An AI can send them a perfectly logical email explaining why they shouldn't panic sell. But the AI has no skin in the game. It doesn't age. It doesn't need to pay for healthcare. It cannot comprehend the existential terror of poverty.
But the human financial advisor can.
Exactly.
The human sits across the table, looks that terrified client in the eye, and says, I understand why you are afraid. We're going to navigate this together.
Because they share the human condition.
Yes. The client trusts the advisor because of that shared vulnerability. A machine can simulate the words of empathy, but it cannot embody the stakes. Judgment, empathy, responsibility, these require a human operating in the physical world, facing real consequences.
So if we accept this premise that the grunt work has been transferred to the machine, and the human value is now isolated in trust, empathy, and responsibility, how does that actually change the way we work?
Well, Yoshida's records from 2026 shift here from the philosophical to the highly practical.
Yeah, he gets very actionable.
He states a major shift in his own thinking. He says he is no longer interested in the debate over what AI will take away. That era is over for him.
Moving on.
He is entirely focused on a new question. Who is creating new value because AI exists?
This is the pivot from defensive thinking to offensive design. If you are no longer spending 80% of your week acting like a human router, just, moving information from one place to another, what do you design with that freed up bandwidth?
Right. And Yoshida looks at this through a macro-level societal lens, which makes sense given his work with Kagawa Labo and Japan's digital agency.
Of course.
He shares specific examples of how people are applying this newly isolated human value. Like, he points to innovators using AI to solve regional and local issues.
Yeah, and he highlights public servants modernizing administrative services, too.
Exactly. He mentions people supporting the aging population with digital literacy and educators proposing entirely new ways of working.
Let's break down the mechanics of how that actually functions in practice, especially in public administration. Historically, a local civil servant might spend 30 hours a week cross-referencing zoning laws, checking compliance forms, and filing documentation just to approve a new community park.
The ultimate soul-crushing bureaucracy.
Seriously. But in Yoshida's 2026 landscape, the AI handles that entire compliance and documentation process in minutes. It treats the bureaucracy as baseline infrastructure.
So what does the civil servant do with those recovered 30 hours?
They don't just sit there. They go physically into the community. They sit down with the elderly residents to understand their mobility challenges. They apply human empathy to realize that the park doesn't just need a paved path. It needs shaded seating every 50 feet because the summer heat is becoming intolerable for seniors.
The machine cleared the brush so the human could actually see the forest.
Beautifully put. The civil servant isn't competing with the AI's ability to read zoning laws. They are leveraging the AI to amplify their human capacity to care for their community.
And you see the exact same thing in Yoshida's point about supporting the aging population with digital literacy.
Oh, definitely.
AI might be the back-end engine making a healthcare app function smoothly. But it requires a human with immense patience, empathy, and trust to sit next to an 80-year-old and teach them how to confidently navigate that app without feeling foolish.
The innovators Yoshida is observing all share one common trait. They treat artificial intelligence the same way we treat electricity or indoor plumbing.
It's just assumed infrastructure.
Right. You don't brag about your business having electricity, you focus on what you are illuminating.
I like that.
These professionals assume that AI will handle the cognitive processing, which frees up 100% of their bandwidth to focus on human-centric design. They are leveraging purpose to revitalize local regions, knowing the heavy analytical lifting is already handled.
It is a profound unburdening, provided you are willing to let go of the tasks you used to identify with.
Which brings us to the final section of Yoshida's records. And honestly, this is the part that has been lingering in my mind since I read it.
The unfinished thought.
Yes, the unfinished thought. Yoshida brings the narrative full circle. It is now 2026. He is looking back across those 4 years of rapid evolution, and he thinks about that lawyer in Takamatsu from 2022.
Right. The man who passionately declared across his desk, "I will never accept ChatGPT."
Yoshida asks the obvious question, how is he doing today?
And as a reader, you immediately expect the punchline.
You really do.
You expect to hear that the lawyer went out of business because he refused to adapt, or that he had this sudden epiphany and is now a leading AI advocate.
But Yoshida gives us something much more honest. He just writes, I don't know.
It's such a brilliant admission, and it serves the entire mission of these records.
It really does. Because the lawyer might still be aggressively refusing to use AI, stubbornly clinging to his manual drafting process, or he might be using it naturally every single day, having quietly integrated it into his workflow once the initial shock wore off.
We simply do not know.
But Yoshida points out that this uncertainty is perfectly fine. We don't need a neat conclusion to the lawyer's story because the story itself served its purpose.
Right.
It forced us to realize that the most profound change over the past few years wasn't the technology. The language models got faster, sure. But more importantly, we changed.
Our collective relationship with the concept of work evolved. That lawyer's initial defensive rejection was a necessary catalyst.
Yeah.
It forced everyone who heard that story to sit in a very uncomfortable space and interrogate their own professional identity. It made us ask what it actually means to be a professional in a digital society.
Let's linger in that uncomfortable space for a second. Yoshida doesn't try to solve this, but I think the lawyer's pride back in 2022 wasn't misplaced at all.
You don't think so?
No. He had every right to be fiercely proud of his expertise and his dedication to his craft. The issue was that the anchor of his pride was tied to the wrong thing. He had tied his pride to the speed and accuracy of his drafting. And true professional pride going forward simply cannot be rooted in the thought, I can compute this faster and more accurately than a machine.
Because that is a battle humans lost years ago.
Exactly. It's like trying to outrun a sports car. You will exhaust yourself and still lose. The anchor of professional pride has to shift domains.
What if his pride shifted to the uniquely human elements Yoshida identified?
Yes, exactly.
Imagine that same lawyer today, in 2026. His pride isn't in the paperwork. His pride is anchored in saying, I am the human who takes responsibility for this outcome. I am the human who guides you through the most stressful, terrifying legal moment of your life. I am the human you trust when everything else is uncertain.
That is a completely unassailable form of professional pride. No software update can ever overwrite that.
And that is why Yoshida's records resonate so deeply, regardless of whether you're reading the Japanese or the international version. This story serves as a mirror for all of us. Whether you are an architect, a teacher, a consultant, or a digital strategist yourself, we all have a little bit of that Takamatsu lawyer inside of us.
We really do.
We all have specific daily tasks that we take immense pride in, tasks that machine will inevitably learn to do better, faster, and cheaper.
The challenge of our era is learning how to let go of the task without losing the pride of the profession. As we wrap up this deep dive into Yoshida's observations, let's briefly trace the arc of what we've unpacked today.
Sounds good.
We started in the friction of 2022, witnessing a lawyer's defensive pride, the very real, visceral fear of a machine invalidating a lifetime of study.
And we saw how that fear birthed the myth of stolen jobs and how Yoshida reframed it as a massive societal value transfer. The mechanic.
From the vantage point of 2026, we saw that this transfer wasn't a loss of human value, but rather a distillation of it. By stripping away the grunt work, we were forced to define what actually makes us indispensable.
Right.
We found that our true economic and societal value lives in the messy, unautomatable world of trust, judgment, empathy, responsibility, and purpose.
And we saw how innovators are using AI not as a competitor, but as a baseline infrastructure to amplify those deeply human traits, reshaping public service, education, and community support.
It is a fundamental shift in posture. It is moving from the defensive crouch of asking, what will the machine take from me?
Hmm.
To the offensive, creative posture of asking, what can I build now that the machine is lifting the weight?
It really is a completely different mindset.
And as promised, at the very beginning of this deep dive, we are not going to tie this up with a neat, finalized conclusion. We're intentionally leaving the rough edges intact. We want to leave you with an unfinished thought.
Think back to that lawyer staring down a ChatGPT document, feeling the ground shift beneath his feet.
Yoshida leaves us with one ultimate, lingering question, and I want to pose this directly to you listening right now, to mull over as you look at your own life, your own daily tasks, and your own career trajectory.
Yeah. As artificial intelligence continues to absorb the mechanical work of your industry, what uniquely human value will define your future?